Ascension forecast for Sunday, June 15th to Saturday, June 21st. So last week we had a lot pop off. A lot of it started with Mercury, ruler of the mental plane, coming into a conjunction and alignment with Jupiter, the planet of growth, at 29 degrees in Gemini energy. This was like their last meetup, their last little kiss, if you will, for 12 years in this particular sign. And of course, it created a little bit of a pressurized situation in that headspace. Big ideas, big thoughts, big overwhelming surges of energy, definitely trying to make our head explode. And of course, it came on very quick, it came on very intense, and then Mercury shifted into Cancer energy on the 8th. And of course, that is when a little bit of intensity kind of dissipated because we had to move down into the heart space. We had to factor in our emotions, if you will. And of course, Mercury in this Cancer energy is trying to blend our intellect with our intuition, our thoughts with our feelings. And we're definitely doing some processing there that's going to take some time. Now, just one day later, on the 9th, we had Jupiter, the planet of growth, shift out of that Gemini energy that we've been in since May of 2024 and move into Cancer energy as well. And again, this is a major heavy-hitting planet, major transition that we still have not fully adjusted or acclimated to. It's going to take some time for us to really feel our way through this new life lesson of building a new foundation and structure of emotional comfort, safety, and security, not only within us, but within our physical realms as well. We had no time to adjust to Mercury moving into Cancer, or Jupiter moving into Cancer for that matter, because Jupiter took the throne over the full moon in Sagittarius that popped off on the 11th that presented us with a major crossroads point. This is the pivot point that we've been talking about. This is the pivot point that we've been waiting for. A lot of that full moon Sagittarius energy definitely had us all riled up in our inner realm with nowheres to go in the physical realm. And of course, a lot of things to think about because of that crossroads energy. And I'm talking about the square to the nodes of the moon. This is essentially the choice point that we knew was going to take place at the tail end of Gemini season, as it always does, because the dualistic, polarized nature of Gemini energy and Gemini season puts us at a place where we have to find a middle point, a compromise point, where we absolutely have to make some very hard decisions to either fall back into what is tried, tested, and true, and therefore settle for what it is that we've already got, or boss up, do the hard things, choose different, and get something different as a result. Now, of course, that full moon in Sag popped off and we immediately shifted into Capricorn energy. That definitely grounded us out, anchored us into the physical body. A lot of aches and pains, a lot of mobility issues definitely followed that full moon in Sag. And we are still kind of in it. We're waiting to shift into this Aquarius moon that is definitely going to take the weight of the world off of our shoulders, put us up in the headspace, acting as the observer so that we can kind of see what is working, what isn't, what needs to stay, what needs to go, and where it is that we need to do some problem solving. Now, that being said, it's setting us up for a very interesting week. We do start off with the moon in this Aquarius energy that, again, is going to do very well for us to figure out how it is to bridge the gap from where it is that we're at to where it is that we desire to be. But we're coming into the last week of Gemini energy. Okay, so although we are nearing the final degrees of Gemini season, where at this particular point, yeah, you're probably still confused, you're probably feeling the urgency, you're probably feeling a lot of anxiety, but we are going to start seeing that one path, one decision, one choice point is becoming more favorable over the other. The dualistic, polarized nature is definitely being over-exaggerated on the greater, grander global stage here. And what is semi-concerning is a lot of the frustration, a lot of the anger kind of getting triggered and activated, divinely scripted, if you will, and man-made scripted on that global stage. A lot of this is concerning because we have Mars, the god of war, ruling over our physical energy, our drive, our passion, our desire, sitting at a 29th critical crisis degree of this Leo energy, which of course is the heart and soul of our zodiac. We're building in the boldness, the bravery, the courage needed to do the hard things before Mars shifts into Virgo energy. Now, this is popping off on the 17th. If you haven't taken a listen to June's energy overview as of yet, I'm going to recommend you do so because you're sleeping on yourself. We can't just be flying by the seat of our pants at this particular point in this evolutionary calendar. We have to stay ahead of the game. Mars, being the god of war, moving into the precision type of detailed energy of Virgo energy is going to irritate the absolute bejesus out of every single one of us. And because of where the collective's at, and again, I'm not trying to be the negative Nancy, but we're failing miserably here, evolving past the particular point that we've already kind of met ourselves at in previous simulations, we aren't doing so well. And with some of the hints and clues that we're currently sitting in with global events, I would say that Mars is definitely going to be manifesting the shadow parts of what Mars in this final degree of Leo energy is all about. And when he moves into Virgo energy, that is going to be the god of war acting with surgical like precision. Okay. Irritated as F. Virgo placements. You know what I'm saying? We have a predisposition just be irritated by everything. And that irritation is definitely going to manifest through the shadow part of the collective as we move throughout the course of this week. Just as Mars makes this transition into this Virgo energy, we move into the last quarter moon phase of this mutable energy that we began under the new moon in Gemini. Of course, we just reached the most climactic point of this lunar cycle with that full moon in Sagittarius, and now we're going to have a last quarter moon in Pisces energy popping off on the 18th. So the last quarter moon of any lunar phase is a full reflection over how it is that we've gotten here, what it is that's working, what it is that isn't working. And then we take the last quarter moon to the new moon that will be popping off in Cancer energy on the 25th. We take that particular section of time to go through the elimination process, to weed out, if you will, what isn't working, who isn't working, to free up and clear the space for us to move on and move forward. Now, the kicker with this particular last quarter moon in Pisces is that there's a Chiron aspect kind of being thrown in here, which means that there is a lot of pain and trauma and karma and old injuries and old wounds that are going to resurface for a spontaneous amount of healing. And of course, although healing is a good thing, it's a very painful process. And with a lot of transitional energies taking place here this week, it is going to pressurize a lot of people. And for the most part, most people are going to, again, have a choice point on whether or not they're going to boss up, have power and control over them damn selves, or they're going to give the permission to the external realm to have power and control over them. And many people are going to lose their damn minds. Why? Because time is accelerating. Pressurized intensities and timeline shifts are being anchored in. Why? Because the solstice is taking place at the end of this week on the 20th, 21st for some people, depending on your time zone. So when the sun shifts into this Cancer energy and triggers the solstice, we are essentially locking in the karmic chapter, the life lessons that we're going to be working on until the fall when we enter into that equinox energy. And so when the sun is at the 29th degree of the Gemini energy that has manifested, for great example, the division going on the greater, grander global stage right now, there's an intensity taking place. And with Mars, the god of war, being irritated as F and ready to go out in the world and kind of use his sword to cut through all of the bullshit that, again, is irritating us to the point where we are essentially realizing where it is that bad habits, mental plane issues, spiritual psychosis, frustration with ego identities, all of these very trivial things are coming to a head here this week. Now, if I was all love and light, I would say, oh, this is a beautiful week for a transition. This is a beautiful week to build a bridge from the world in which you were living into the world in which you want to live in. I would say that if I was a love and light person, but I'm not. I'm a realist. Let's keep it real. This is going to be a shit show of a week. People are essentially choosing sides on all different topics and themes, which is the last thing that we need to be doing. And you're going to say, wait a second, you have to choose sides. Well, if you want to continue to feed the dark shadow part of the dualistic nature of this earth matrix, then yes, duality and choosing is a thing. If you haven't realized yet, duality is actually the creation of the quote unquote devil. And I say quote unquote devil because there's really no such thing. It is man choosing to be less than man, to de-man themselves, demonize themselves by choosing sides. Unity is the only way out of this. And if we are at this point where there is all of these trivial things like, oh, I don't agree with this, so I'm on this side, or I don't agree with that, so I'm on that side. If you continue to pick sides, you are continuing to fuel the shadow part of the collective. I ask you, I almost beg of you at this point to step aside. Stop giving your time, your energy, your attention to all of these dualistic, polarized arguments. You're only strengthening the construct that we as light workers are here to break. Okay? Unity is the only way out. Stop dividing yourself. Stop dividing your community. Stop dividing the collective. Stop choosing a side and act as the observer and understand that the sides only exist because of the dark forces that are pitting us against each other. And I know that's a very, very trivial topic to be talking about right now with so much going on in the world. If you cannot see that this damage and destruction that is taking place on the earth plane right now is a necessary part of our evolution, if you do not see that, I don't know what to tell you. You're behind in the game. We have to stop polarizing these particular sides, if you will. We have to start unifying. Stop playing their games. Okay. Didn't know that that was a tangent I was about to go on, but there we did it. Okay, I'm going to reel myself back because I'm not done. Yes, we have all of these, very active, very accelerated, very intensified energy shifting here this week. May I also just highlight for you a couple of special mentions, and these special mentions are a list of squares, and we know that squares do not feel good. They're not supposed to. They highlight growing pains, and they're going to be some very intense ones. First of all, Mars and Uranus. My goodness. Okay, so Mars is at the final degrees of Leo energy. Uranus is nearing the final degrees of Taurus energy. Both of them are preparing to make major moves into new energies. Mars into Virgo, Uranus eventually into Gemini. This square is going to be a destabilizing nature and energy that is going to be triggered and activated out of pure anger, rage, and frustration. Mars is the god of war. I cannot be any clearer. Uranus is, I'm going to call it the rebellious type of energy, the awakener type of energy that needs us to boss up and rebel. Okay. Rebellion for freedom, for independence, for all of these things. Mars squaring Uranus is going to be a jolt of energy that on an individual level is going to feel very gross in your physical form. And on the collective stage, we are going to watch the essential shit hit the fan, so to speak. Now, that's not it. That's not done, okay? We have a second major square popping off here this week, which is between Jupiter, who is fresh in this Cancer energy, and Saturn, who is fresh in this Aries energy. And spoiler alert, this is the third and final aspect of the set of 3 aspects that we've been having over the course of some time. Okay, I would say, 10-ish months, but realistically speaking, if you wanted to go back to 2020 when Jupiter and Saturn had their conjunction in the Aquarius energy, that of course was part and parcel of the Great Awakening that we're currently still in and going through. We could go back that far, but as far as this particular aspect is going, we definitely had, I'm going to take you back to August of 2024. We had the square off when Jupiter was in the Gemini energy. The second square off was in December of 2024, again in Gemini energy, but Jupiter was retrograde at that time. And of course, Saturn was in Pisces energy that whole time as well. Mutable signs, mutable square. What's different this time around is that they're both in cardinal energies, the initiators of the zodiac. Cancer energy, Aries energy. So you best believe that we have been presented with information, facts, evidence, proof, details that a major change has to take place. And now the cardinal energies are here to initiate what that change should be. Now, does it feel good? No, not supposed to. Is it supposed to highlight where we're kind of in the way, where we're having a hard time being flexible and adapting, where we're having a hard time growing, where we're having a hard time restructuring, not only who it is that we are, but the lives in which we're living in? 100%, it needs to illuminate where we're going through growing pains. We have to start asking some serious freaking questions of ourselves. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? What is this for? Where is the meaning? Where is the purpose? What is the point? And so this is going to be a conflict taking place within us and manifesting through the collective shadow on the greater, grander global stage, where we really need to get our shit together and start breathing new life into old ideas, old plans. And so this is going to be about, having the irritation, having the problematic situations and circumstances in our face, so much so that we can't run from it. We can't hide it. We can't avoid it anymore. We have to do something about it. And we can't do what we've been doing because we know what that gets us. It gets us this. And this isn't working. So now we have to kind of do something different. We are trying to anchor in this new version of self. We are trying to choose new patterns, new habits, new behaviors, new ways of doing things in order to create a different result. And so although this is going to be a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am type of energy, although it is going to highlight great obstacles and great challenges with all of the other things going on in the background, there's definitely going to be major conflict, and it's going to manifest out of the collective's ignorance, out of the collective's shadow. But that isn't all. I sound like an infomercial, but that's not all. In this bundle, in this offer, we're talking about Jupiter then squaring off with Neptune, who of course is fresh in this Aries energy. What's interesting about this particular square, because most of the time with outer planets, it happens in a set of 3. This time, this is just a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, one-time thing, which is weird AF. Okay, so we have to take note of when there is a cyclical nature, which astrology is. That's why we use astrology to examine patterns and behaviors and predict the outcome of situations and circumstances that have happened in our history. When it kind of breaks out of the mold that we're used to, we have to pay special attention about that, okay? And so here's the thing. Neptune brings a certain level of delusion and confusion. Jupiter, he is just fresh in this Cancer energy, so we haven't really had a chance to stabilize, let alone grow or strengthen, let's call it, the emotional foundation of learning to trust ourselves and trust our own gut. And so with this particular square, first of all, we could be very easily kind of misled or, bamboozled, or trusting other people's sense of reality instead of our own. We could get caught up in unrealistic expectations. We could lose ourselves in Delulu land. And when this is happening to the collective at such a rate in which it's happening here this week, with all of the other background factors triggering essential conflict, and I hate to use that W word, but we're looking at it. We knew it was coming. This is all happening to break us out of the way that the world has been operating. Now, individually speaking, this particular aspect could definitely put us in a situation to want to run and hide, to want to avoid things, to want to just, bury our head in the sand. Good luck to you. If that's what you choose for yourself, you're going to absolutely destroy yourself if you try to run and hide. This is about us where we have to kind of get a grip, where we have to ground, where we have to stop listening to the people, to the world around us, and learn to trust thyself. This is what we've been going through. This is all the work that I've been nagging about that we have to be doing is coming to a head here. This is why we need to know thyself. This is why we need to be healing thyself. This is why we need to be trusting our own gut, intuition, and discernment, because there are going to be a lot of people standing up and saying, hey, I know the way. Hey, I know the truth. Follow me. And unfortunately, even the awakened ones at this point, because we're exhausted, because we're tired of thinking on our own, because we're tired of standing out there by our own damn selves, there are a lot of awakened people that are actually going to take a step back in their own evolvement and start following other people. Why? Because it's easier, and that's where trouble happens. We need to have discipline. We need to trust ourselves. We need to trust our own gut. We need to see the potentiality within our own damn selves. Do not be led off into the rhubarb by someone else, okay? There's going to be a lot of belief systems that get shook up here. A lot of expectations are going to lead to some major disappointments. A lot of paths are just going to end, whether you like them or not. It is going to be a little bit of a doozy. So you're saying, okay, Mara, just another shit show, another week of being alive on this earth plane. What do we got to look forward to? Well, we got a lot to look forward to if you're doing the work, because when we are faced with these types of situations and circumstances, when we can rise up and rise above and see the bullshit and see where it is that, again, we're trying to be led off into a different path and direction, essentially for slaughter. I hate to put that in there, but if you are being tested time and time again and you are not falling victim to the manifestation of the shadow collective, then guess what? You're doing great. You're getting validations time and time again that the work in which you're doing is building you up and building your field up so strongly that you're not going to be deceived and you're not going to be swayed by whatever's going on out in the world. And that's where we all need to get at. So just to kind of wrap up, because I'm still talking about the astrology for this week, in case you missed that, I'm still trying to talk about what we got going on this week. The last thing that I will say is that we start off with the moon in Aquarius and we end with the moon in Taurus, which screams, first of all, moon in Aquarius is acting as the observer for us to think outside of the box on how we are going to be innovative and progressive to come up with solutions that we have not tried in order to resolve some of these issues here, again, on the greater, grander stage and in our own individual lives. We go into the moon in Pisces. We have a spiritual reckoning of sorts with that last quarter moon popping off in that Pisces energy again. Chiron's thrown in there as well. So major wounds being revealed and major wounds having the potential to be healed. So that's a great thing. Then we move into the moon in Aries, which is a new emotional cycle, but it's also a fire starter cycle as well. So we have to kind of watch where we are fanning the flames, so to speak. And then that moon in Taurus is going to force us to anchor in all of the insights, all of the information, start walking the walk and talking the talk, which is the hardest part for most people to do. That's usually when people check out. Everybody's down for manifesting. Everybody's down for being the creator of their own realities until it comes time to put forth the courage and discipline to do the hard things. That's when most people bail. That's when most people check out. So, of course, I'm going to welcome you to not do that. That would be advisable. Let's not run away from the hard parts here this week. Let's rise up. Let's rise above. Let's show the world the change that absolutely needs to take place. We need to be the change that we want to see in the world, and we are the light wearers, the light showers, the light workers, the grid keepers, all those things. So stand up and be the light. That is what I have to say. Okay, let me move on to the homework section. It's going to be very short, I promise you, and then we're going to jump into the Ascension symptoms that we can expect to be popping off here this week. So first of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for liking, for sharing, for commenting, for dropping emojis in the comment section below. I want to thank those of you that have jumped over to Patreon to join our community over there, showing love, showing support. What I would really like to thank you all about is the love and support with this book that I've released. I am super, super excited to know that those of you that ordered the book, especially my Canadians, you all should have received it in the mail, as right now, most of my Canadians have them in their hands. My American friends, it's starting to trickle in. I've gotten a little bit of an update on different areas of the United States that are definitely receiving my mail, which I'm very excited about. Could not be happier, could not be more grateful, could not be more proud to have you all kind of hyped up along with me and dive into this book. The feedback that I've been receiving so far has all been good. I thank you all so much for that. I'm hoping that it is a helpful tool, a helpful resource for years to come for people going through their healing journey. And of course, if you want to grab your copy, head to my website. There's digital downloads and there is the paperback. And so thank you all so much for the continued love and support. And yeah, just super anxious to see where this all takes us. And of course, I have a little tiny workshop, little tiny mini course that I'm working on that is going to accompany that book. I just want people to actually receive the book and be able to read a little bit about it before I bring on a course. So again, I'm just waiting for my American friends and for my international friends. You guys already know it's probably going to be a couple more weeks before you get yours. But again, just want to thank each and every single one of you, not only for your support, but for your patience in receiving that in the mail. As far as the book goes, let me just remind you, I do this Ascension forecast each and every single week. I rattle off the astrology of what is popping off. I rattle off the Ascension symptoms that we can expect from those particular energetic shifts. Now, that being said, the book is based on trying to inform you of why all of this is connected, why we go through this, how this happens, how the body responds to the electrical forces, the magnetism out in the cosmos. The book is also a resource for you to quick reference the pains, the aches, the discomfort that you're feeling, to look that up, to see what is causing it, not only to understand what is causing it, but to be able to predict it when it happens again. And of course, there's remedies, there's practices in that book in order to help you manage these symptoms. It is not okay for you to be moving through the world, experiencing these ascension symptoms and not doing anything about it. If you are a person who is I'm going to say destabilized or disabled from some of these ascension symptoms when they come on too fast or come on too hot, and you just lay on the couch and do nothing about it, I'm sorry to inform you, but you are not doing the work, and you are going to continue to get your ass kicked by these ascension symptoms until you boss up and do the work. That's why I wrote this book. You know, it is part one of a couple of other, series that I got in the works here, because the amount of people that are alive and well and awakened and on this healing journey, but yet not doing the work to actually heal was alarming for me. And so I kind of expedited this book to be published first out of a series that I got going on here, because I felt the urgency in the collective. And so I'm a little bit surprised that people just, are totally overwhelmed with ascension symptoms and just want to lay on the couch and wait for it to pass. B, everybody in prior years were like, oh, I wish there was a book about this, or I wish I knew this when I was first awakened, or I wish I had a resource that I could just look up my ache and pain and figure out what is causing it and what to do it. Well, guess what? I wrote the book. Okay, so if you are struggling with ascension symptoms, if you are tuning in time and time again, first of all, thank you for tuning in, but if you're tuning in time and time again to listen to what this week is going to bring to you, but yet you still have no active strategy on how you're going to move through these energies, you are doing a huge disservice to yourself. Okay, so as much as I want to kind of, plug my book, it's also a need. It is a manual in order to do the work. And I really invite you to lean all the way in. We are coming to a very trivial point in the calendar. We have another marker that has just been revealed here this week that suggests that we are not on the greatest timeline. And when I say to you, I'm not saying that for fear mongering, I'm saying that it is going to be even harder to function with this amount of energy coursing through our bodies. It is going to bring on even more discomfort if you're not doing the work over the next couple of years. So please, please, please invest in yourself, do the work, lean all the way into the discomfort, and do something about the Ascension symptoms that you are currently feeling. With that being said, I put out a weekly Ascension guide for the week ahead. I put out this Ascension guide every week, and if you're a Patreon subscriber, you would know because you see it. But we do a daily Ascension symptom rundown on my Patreon. We talk about how the energy manifests. We talk about the symptoms. We talk about what you can do about it. If you do not want to become a Patreon member, if you do not want to download the book, I understand. I get it. We all have priorities. When I say to you that you are doing yourself a disservice by not staying ahead of the game, there are resources like the Ascension guide that I put out every week for you to have, for you to navigate, for you to have a resource at your fingertips to not only anticipate the energy coming at you, but to figure out what to do about it when it hits you and knocks you on your ass. Okay, so again, you can find that Ascension guide on my website, or you can jump over to Patreon. There are resources out there for you. So if you're choosing to struggle through it, it is a choice at this point. Doesn't have to be, but you are making that choice for yourself. And I would really encourage you to boss up to do the work. Is it fun? Absolutely not. But being curled up in a ball, not being able to move and breathe and crying to death every week isn't very favorable as well. So you pick your poison, you choose for yourself what it is that you want to do, but we are coming to a very critical point in this particular timeline where if you're not doing the work, you are going to be suffering for it. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about that. On top of that, I just released my July calendar. So if you need some one-on-one help, if you need a little bit of a peek into your chart, what you got coming at you, where the problematic areas are, what you can do about it, I would invite you to book a one-on-one session, and I will help give you all the information you need. I will help you clear all of those particular questions up. That's what those appointments are there for. So again, be the judge. What do you need right now? Ask your soul self, ask your higher self, what kind of resources, what kind of support do I need right now? And choose, because there are a lot of resources, support, guidance, and assistance out there for you. Okay, with all of that being said, let's jump into the goods. Let's talk about the Ascension symptoms that we can expect to pop off at us here this week. So, I already went on a little bit of a mini rant, okay, especially with the things going on the greater grander stage. Let's just say that in our own individual lives and on the collective stage, old wounds, old pain, old trauma, old injuries are going to be resurfacing here this week because we are at a very particular choice point. And especially, let me just sprinkle in here, that last quarter moon in Pisces with the Chiron activation is the culprit, is the thing to blame here this week for having those old injuries, wounds resurface for our awareness. Now, on the global stage, if you know history at all, it's not hard to see that history does, in fact, repeat itself, because guess what? Humans are dumb. We did not learn the first, second, third, fourth, and here we are in the fifth, sixth simulation, and we're still not learning. So again, you can only feel so bad about what's going on the greater grander stage because, again, humans are dumb AF. We're not supposed to be, but that shadow part is definitely, I'm going to say, flexing its strength at this particular juncture. And it's hella disappointing for those of us that see through it and know exactly what is happening and why it's happening and what needs to happen. And it's very defeating to sit back and know that none of that is going to happen, that we're not going to correct this situation, that we are going to fall victim to the same patterns and behaviors that history has dictated for us. And it is just part of the ride, unfortunately. But in our own individual lives, you are going to feel old injuries, old wounds, old trauma, old karma kind of get triggered and activated in you. And all of this is to put into perspective what it is that we have been suppressing, what we've been avoiding, what we've been absolutely clueless about, living very alive and well within us. We need to do something about it. We need to make the choice, right? End of Gemini season. Choice, 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 decision, 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 direction, direction, direction. And again, very important as we move through this solstice gateway towards the end of the week, that we have the right mind about us, we have the right emotions about us, we have the right energetic signature about us, because that's what we're locking in for this next chapter. Now, as I've already stated, irritability, frustration, anger, and rage are definitely going to be topics and themes that are going to challenge us here this week. Again, if you've been doing the work, you're going to have no problem rising up and rising above and flipping the script and using that particular energy as a fuel to empower you and to motivate you and to propel you in a path, in a direction that is much more favorable than using that fuel to burn yourself down and the people in the world around you, which, newsflash, we're probably going to watch take place on the greater, grander global stage, because the collective, the majority of collective, is going to lean all the way into these shadow aspects, unfortunately, for those of us that are awakened, that have been holding down the grid, that have been trying to alchemize this heaviness, this dankness of the collective shadow. We have no choice but to just sit back, be a little bit disappointed, be a little bit in defeat, and then double down on doing what we can within ourselves to make up for what the collective is currently failing at, which is very unfortunate. I know many of us are very tired. We've been carrying a very heavier load of collective shadow than any of us were originally aware of and signed up for. And that's why we are reaching this quote unquote breakthrough point, because those of us that have been out there kind of holding the light, the grid down for the collective, we are realizing that we have signed up for this next chapter, which includes an extra double dose of all the bullshit in which we've been carrying, because again, we are at a particular timeline marker that we should be seeing the collective wake up and choose differently and not fall victim to this absolute delulu bullshit that the greater, grander, let's call them not so nice people at the top, are setting up for people to fall into yet another trap. And they're doing it willingly, eyes wide open, some of them. And it's absolutely disappointing, absolutely defeating. However, us light workers, we know that we signed up for a mission that probably wasn't going to end up well, and all we can do is double down and do what we can within our own selves, with our own realm of energetic frequencies, in order to try and at least hold the line, at least hold the grid at a stabilized point, because Lord Jesus knows if one of us decides to take an energetic vacation, the whole thing is going to come down crashing. So let's start at the head. Of course, we're still in Gemini season. We have a lot of information that we're receiving. We have a lot of challenging ideas, old thoughts, old narratives that we have to be overriding. So the head pressure is still quite extreme. There is dizziness. There is disassociation coming with that. There is a moving headache, a head worm, if you will, because the crown activations that we're currently having, trying to connect us with the greater, grander collective, so that the greater, grander collective that is still asleep can feed off of those that are awake, and trying to alchemize the energies into clarity instead of this confusion that the collective is currently sitting in. There are a lot of, let's call them energetic strings being woven, the fabric of our destiny being rewoven here this week, and it is going to have a major impact on each of our head spaces. Now, of course, the ringing in your ears, one ear over the other. I don't even think it's like a normal ringing, like a download. It's more like the wah-wah, water in your ear, pressurized situation where everything kind of gets muffled and then something feels like it essentially pops, if you will, and then the clarity comes in so loud that it is almost deafening to a point. A lot of that is due to the central nervous system getting first of all, a overwhelming stream of energy here this week, and then it frazzles us out, and then it's like a nervous system reset taking place here this week. But all of that just kind of overloads our senses And, Venus being in Taurus right now is having our senses be over exaggerated so that, again, we can listen to the way that our physical body is reacting to some of the ideas, choice points, decisions that we're currently percolating on. But when I say that all of our senses are going to be jacked up and hypersensitive, it puts us in a new level of awareness. And when you get into a new level of awareness, everything is really loud. Colors are loud, sounds are loud, tastes are loud, sensory textures are loud. It's definitely going to put us in a state of overwhelm. And because we have Mars moving into this Virgo energy, which is basically triggering a permanent irritation mode, having a overwhelmed sensory experience is definitely going to put us in irritation 101. So that's not going to be so fun. But again, all of these energies are here to kind of test the work that we've been doing. Do we have the ability to override our negative ass narratives? Do we have the ability to understand that the energy is too potent moving throughout our physical bodies? Do we have the ability to soothe it, to calm it? Do we have the resources, the wisdom, the knowledge to tap into when times get hard, to reset the system, ground and anchor ourselves, and to stay present in the moment and trust the greater, grander plan that our soul self needs us to trust? All of this is a choice point. All of this is an invitation to boss the F up. So of course, there's going to be a lot going on in our headspace. There's going to be a lot going on in the sensory experience. And because of that, and because of the bridge that we are currently walking here this week, there's a lot of pressure on our shoulders, and we're going to feel that weight, that pressure on our shoulders. It could actually impact the movement, the flexibility of our neck space. Again, there has been throat chakra activations, but we're in like battle cry mode right now. So unless you're like crying and weeping in a victimhood mentality way, or you're screaming and crying in a forceful battlefield type of way, either way, there's a lot of energy that needs to get out of our bodies, and it's coming out through our words, through our screams. And that has a lot of connection to the weight of the world that we are carrying and the amount of energy that we need to expel from the physical body. Now, specifically with Mars sitting at 29 critical crisis degree of Leo energy and then shifting into Virgo energy, there's going to be a pop in adrenaline. There's going to be an elevation of our anger, of our frustration. Yes, the warrior within us is being activated, but that warrior for the majority of the collective is coming out of fear and coming out of not feeling in control. And there is nothing worse and nothing more dangerous than an unhinged warrior. And I would say that, the precision and detail that we are going to need with this Virgo placement, when Mars actually moves into Virgo energy, we're going to learn the hard way that acting a fool and going out, let's just say, for instance, that you have this like beautiful weapon, this beautiful sword, and you own it, you bought it, you have it, you can hold it, but you have no clue how to use it. Okay, well, what kind of warrior are you going to be out on the battlefield? Just, whipping that thing around willy-nilly. You're a danger to yourself, okay? Let alone other people, but you're a danger to yourself. What we need is precision. And I want to talk about monks for a second. Monks are trained to a certain extent on how to fight, defend, and protect. Their ability to use a weapon is so calculated, so precise, that if that weapon is used on you, it's probably not going to be a good outcome. The point of it is that a monk wants unification, a monk wants peace, but they are able to F around and find out, if you will, and you're going to learn the hard way that if you force a monk into a position where they have to essentially choose a weapon and use it against you, your time is up, my friend. Your time is up. And so, yeah, the warrior and all of us are going to be activated here this week. But what you do with that warrior type of energy is going to dictate where it is that you're at in your healing game. And unfortunately, for the majority of us, we are going to watch a bunch of unhinged, wounded children take space on the battlefield and just start whipping their weapons around with no real understanding on how to use them correctly. And we are going to watch a lot of them injure their own damn selves in the process. And unfortunately, as hard as it is to watch those particular energies manifest and watch those situations and circumstances pop off, it is something that we have to kind of step back and observe and just hope and pray that in the next reset and sideline, there is going to be a reset, that we remember our faults, that we remember our mistakes, that we remember the errors of this particular point in our timeline, in our simulation, in our earthly experience, so that we can choose differently the next time. Unfortunately, we are too far gone on this lower timeline to kind of rectify a lot of the wrongs that we are witnessing at this particular point. We are too far gone. However, there will be a reset, and hopefully in that next reset, we will have the wisdom, the knowledge from this particular observation to choose differently the next time around. I know that's defeating for a lot of people to hear, because you hear all of this new age shit about, oh, the war is already won. The light has won. God has chosen his people, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that wasn't talking about this time in history, okay? That was a different reference. And so if you're stuck on that particular narrative, I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy. I'm a realist. And we have had significant markers suggest that we are on one of the lower timelines, and one of those lower timelines have an inevitable outcome that has been very clear to anybody who's been awakened, anybody doing the work. We know that those choice points weren't chosen correctly, and we know what we're in for, and now we have to observe the fallout. Does it make me happy to say that? Absolutely not. I am defeated in so many different ways, and I don't mean to pass that defeat on to y'all, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and, and call it something it's not. It's absolutely a disappointment, absolutely a defeating point in humanity yet again. In case you didn't know, we've done this before, and in case you didn't realize, we're going to be doing this again. Anywho, I digress. The restlessness that is going to be taking place here this week, we are going to feel like we want to crawl out of our own damn skin. We are going to have ants in our pants. We are going to have restless leg syndrome. We are going to have this jitteriness, this anxiety, this angst building up within us that just makes us feel gross. It's not going to feel fun to be in the physical body. What are most people going to want to do when that element, that energy, that discomfort hits? They're going to want to disassociate. They're going to want to run. They're going to want to hide. They're going to want to numb. If they do that, and when I say they, I mean you, if they/you do that, you are going to be taking such severe steps back in your healing journey that is going to take you double the amount of time in order to dig yourself out of this pit. When I say to you that embodiment is the only way for us to grow and heal at this particular point in time, does it feel fun to sit in your physical body when all you want to do is crawl out of it? Absolutely not. But that is what needs to happen. You need to sit in it. You need to sit with it. You need to feel it in order to heal it. I cannot repeat that enough. Now, I already talked about the timeline shift, but here's the thing. This restlessness, these ants in our pants, this want, need, desire to crawl out of our skin, it's coming because the urgency, the intensity, I'm going to call it present day soul contract agreement is pushing us into this quote unquote crisis mode. Time is accelerating, urgency is amplified, everything is happening. It feels crazy. It feels chaotic. Most people are going to lose their shit here this week. Again, if you've been doing the work, I would hope to hell that you've done the work to the point where you're not going to fall victim to the delusion and confusion that is going to be created on the greater, grander global scale here this week. But let me just reiterate for you, and I talked about this, for the last couple of months, specifically coming into Gemini season, because I knew Gemini season was going to be a hard time for people to make up their minds and to choose differently and to override their own patterns and to challenge themselves to override old ideas, old narratives. I also knew that Gemini season is a time where time accelerates because we're heading into this freaking solstice portal, this gateway, this energy that locks in whatever your vibration and frequency is currently resonating at. And of course, when we have very special events such as solstice and equinox activations that essentially lock in karma, when we have situations like that, there is always a shit show on the greater, grander collective. They want to create fear and chaos and confusion and hate and torture prior to an upgrade point. This is why shit hits the fan prior to a major cosmic milestone. It happens every time, guys. Like, it's so predictable at this particular point that nobody should be surprised at the events that A, have already popped off, and B, are going to continue to pop off throughout the course of this week, because they want us in a lower vibrational frequency to lock in through that solstice gateway, because that gives them permission to continue the craziness and the chaos that they have man-made created, all in the name of divinity. What do I mean by that? Well, everything that you see going on here is a fight, is an argument over a particular quote unquote God. Everybody thinks that their God is the God. And I don't know how many wars that God has been responsible for, but why we haven't ended wars in God's name is beyond me. That's a different rant for a different day, I guess. But what I'm getting at is that there's always a shit show. Shit always hits the fan. There is always this catastrophic event. There is always this hype up situation that pops off prior to a karmic checkpoint. This is no different. And that's why I welcome you to rise up, rise above. Do not play the game. Do not be fooled. Do not be bamboozled. Keep to your own damn self. Stay in your lane. Anchor in your energy. Trust thyself. Heal thyself. Focus on being the change in yourself that you want to see take place in the world. That's the only way that we can do it at this particular juncture. But it does not feel good to be kind of feeling like your back is against the wall, to feel defeat. It does not feel good to feel a crisis, afoot. Doesn't feel good to feel that urgency. Doesn't feel good to feel the craziness, the chaos. But it is up to us to stay in the body, to do what we can do to soothe that central nervous system, because we have the power to change the course of this particular timeline only if enough of us can stay calm. Only enough of us can withdraw from the craziness and the chaos of the collective and anchor in, continuing to carry the load for the collective, anchor in what we can, which is that good light. So this is going to have a major impact on people, and it is going to be a major struggle between our heart and our head this week. Again, division is the name of the game this week, and division is the enemy. Unification is the goal. Unification is the only way out of this. So our heart and our head are definitely going through a realignment, I would say here, but there's going to be such spontaneous emotional and mental outbursts taking place, not only with the unawakened, but with the awakened as well. This is all a mind game. This is all a psyop. And even those that have been awakened, those that believe that they're enlightened, can fall victim and fall into the pit, fall into the trap. And because of that, and because that we are taking on the energy of the collective, and the collective's energy is going to be absolute shit this week, we are going to have a struggle staying strong, staying anchored, and staying in balance between our heart and our head. A lot of heart activations, a lot of head activations. It is going to be a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. And then we're going to be thrown into the pool of emotion, if you will, when the sun moves into that Cancer energy. And it's going to be a weird vibe because it's like we're manic. Everything is going so fast. Everything is going so crazy. We're feeling everything, but yet we're emotionally numb at the same time. It's an oxymoronic state to be in. We have, this exhaustion, this fatigue taking over our soul space, but yet this amping up of energy in our physical body. And if we're not careful, the physical body, that survival programming, can get the best of us if we're not careful. That's why we're being tested. This is why we got to be doubling down on what it is that we have learned, on what it is that we have been practicing. Because there is going to be a lot of discomfort in the physical body, because people are going to want to disassociate and numb. There is going to be a floatiness that we feel here this week because the structure of the matrix is shifting, meaning Yes, mentally and emotionally, we don't want to be in our physical form. And so there is this element where we kind of disassociate and detach and kind of be this floaty head that's just, bobbing through life. But also gravity. Gravity is going to be adjusted here this week, which is going to feel very weird. You're either going to feel heavier and more weighted in your physical body, or you're going to feel light and fluffy, or you're going to feel like the measurements are off. You're going to be bumping into things in your home that have been there this whole time, and you're going to be surprised that it actually jumped out of the spot in which you knew it to be in to step in your way. Of course, that's not happening. That's not the way it happens. It's just going to feel like that. But gravity is shifting here this week. The gravity of the situation is shifting. The gravity of our choice points are shifting. And the actual oomph of gravity is shifting as well. The matrices are shifting. This is a bridge week. This is a very tough transitional week. And there's going to be a lot of craziness and chaos because of it. And we are going to see the evidence of that in the physical realm where gravity is concerned. Of course, there's going to be digestive issues, especially when Mars moves into Virgo energy. Virgo energy, typically speaking, always is connected to digestive issues. But here's the thing. We have this warrior type of spirit. There's an intensity here. There's an anger. There's an angst. There's a frustration. We want to heal. We want to fix it. We want to solve it so freaking badly. Yes, we have the ability to have some deep healing going on within us, within the collective, but deeper healing means deeper purging, right? You gotta clean out the junk and the gunk in order for healing to actually take place, which means that digestive disruptions are going to be a thing. You could be bloated. You could feel like a nervous Nelly in your gut. You could have that elevator sensation where your stomach is dropping for no reason. You could have the flutters. You could have the butterflies. You could have a whole family of little otters just decide to set up shop and swim around and flutter and splash each other in your gut. Okay, so here's what I'm saying. There's going to be some bubble gut situations. You're going to want to feel like you're going to puke or evacuate out the back door in a moment's notice. There's an urgency, an acceleration here, an intensifying energy really controlled that gut space. So of course, that's going to have a major impact on our cravings, on our ability to digest food. We're going to be hypersensitive to a lot of the foods that were our comfort foods or our safe foods. Everything is changing. And speaking of change, there's going to be a new level of cray-cray unleashed in our dreamscape here this week, specifically around midweek when that last quarter moon is going to be popping off in Pisces energy. And then that solstice gateway always puts us in a situation where there are some cryptic dream messages that get revealed to us in order to kind of start the digging, if you will, to do the work in our subconscious to see where some of these particular matters, these particular, feelings, repressed emotions, thoughts, ideas, whatever the case may be, memories need to flash back for us to reprocess them from the level of awareness that we're currently operating from in order for us to heal it. And we do have major healing points available to us here this week, but they're going to be revealed through irritation, frustration, anger, and discomfort. The last thing that I want to leave you with is temperature. Now, I did speak upon the temperature fluctuations that we were experiencing in last week's forecast. May I also continue to remind you here this week that I feel like the majority of us are going to be running cold. Now, it's an oxymoronic thing, really, because you would think that having your blood boil and that warrior type of energy kind of creep out and anger and frustration, you would think that that would make your blood boil. That would make you think that you're running hot. But we have new energies coursing through the earth plane, coursing through our physical bodies. We have new information, new downloads. New energy tends to run cold. And so if you're running hot, that's major mental, emotional, energetic blockages that are being broken up. I would say that the majority of the awakened collective here this week is going to experience coldness, like sitting out underneath the sun, blazing on you. Everybody's sweating to death and you're doubled down with socks and slippers and hoodies and blankets. You just cannot get warm. And that is part and parcel of trying to hold this grid down while shit hits the fan. And so pay attention to the temperature that you're running, to the area of the body that it's affecting the most. Pay attention to where it is that you want to run and hide from your own damn self, and where it is that you need to double down, lean into the discomfort, and stay in the body. Please feel it. We have to heal it. Even if it's not yours, we're carrying the weight of the world on us anyways. Do your best to alchemize the energy in order for us to tip the scales to at least have a better outcome to this absolute shit show of a timeline that we are unfortunately stuck in. We all have to do our part. So guys, that is all the information that I have for you for this upcoming week. It is not going to be fun. It is going to be an absolute shit show of a doozy, but I truly believe that those of us that have been doing the work have the ability, have the capability, have what it takes to hold this grid down. Okay, so if you're feeling weak, if you're feeling vulnerable, if you feel like you're at your breaking point, if you feel like you're at your wits' end, I understand. I see you, I hear you, I feel you. But I also know that you were chosen for this particular timeline to be the warrior of the energy of light. And that requires you to give yourself 5 minutes to cry, to whine, to complain before you boss the F up. We need to link arms. We need to double down. We need to anchor in so firmly that it does not matter what is about to pop off on the global stage. We are holding this grid down. I send you so much love. I thank you for being here. And again, we are running towards this solstice gateway with nothing but love and unity in our hearts. We'll talk to you soon.